There is a $4 piece of unrefined mineral lying forgotten in dusty geological supply bins and tossed in scrap heaps from industrial manufacturing around the world. People step over it daily without a second thought. Yet inside its dense, unassuming crystalline lattice is an energy solution so potent it could devastate the $170 billion commercial solar industry. You have been misled. A decades-long corporate campaign has convinced you that harnessing sunlight requires $20,000 of debt, heavy installation equipment, and highly guarded toxic manufacturing. You have been told that real off-grid independence is a luxury only the wealthy can afford. But what if the physics of photovoltaic energy were perfected over a century ago, using materials that cost mere change? We will explore how modern energy cartels behind it and how to use it naturally occurring semiconductor. First, how engineers must understand the mechanism of control to disconnect homes. The solar panels on suburban roofs are not tools of freedom. They are instruments of financial control. Billion-dollar utility conglomerates and megacorporations producing these sleek, heavy rectangles have created a perfect closed-loop monopoly. They convince the world that converting photons into electricity demands silicon dioxide wafers baked in massive vacuum chambers at over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They sell an image of cutting-edge technology while masking the simplicity beneath. Building codes and grid-tied contracts ensure that even if you generate your own power, you remain tethered to their smart meters and pricing structures. This $60 billion model is fragile, and the corporations fear the day the public realizes commercial solar panels are over-engineered and artificially inflated. To grasp the deception, consider the cellular level of a solar panel. Remove the aluminum frame, the tempered anti-reflective glass, and the microinverters designed to fail after warranty. At its core, commercial solar relies on the p-n junction, a boundary between two types of semiconductor, usually silicon doped with phosphorus and boron. Sunlight hitting this junction causes photonic excitation. Photons free electrons from the silicon dioxide, and the built-in electric field drives the electrons, creating current. That is the secret. Photonic excitation producing an electron cascade. For 60 years, billions have been spent convincing the public that this reaction only occurs in expensive silicon cells. They claim the bandgap energy is only viable with proprietary technology. This is a lie. Nature perfected this process long before silicon foundries existed, and the military-industrial complex has known it since World War II. In 1943, the United States Army Signal Corps faced a logistical crisis. Forward operating bases needed reliable, self-sufficient communication equipment. Fuel supply chains were fragile, and generators could not be hauled through Pacific jungles. Ambient energy had to be harvested silently and continuously. Declassified military manuals reveal research into naturally occurring rectifying minerals. Primitive semiconductors were sought that could be mined or synthesized simply to power radios and low-voltage signaling. Certain unrefined minerals exhibited strong photovoltaic effects under ultraviolet and infrared light. No vacuum chambers, no silicon processing, just raw geology reacting to sunlight. This research was suppressed after the war. Post-war energy cartels realized that if soldiers could generate electricity with rocks and wires, civilians could power homes without utility bills. Centralized power was a tool of economic control, and natural semiconductors threatened it. By 1954, when Bell Laboratories introduced the first practical silicon solar cell, the narrative was cemented. The media praised the expensive wafer as the only way forward. Military research on cheap mineral photovoltaics was buried under decades of propaganda. But physics ignores monopolies. Universal properties cannot be patented or hidden forever. The mineral. The industry tried to erase as a natural oxidation of copper related to, this makes cuprous oxide extremely efficient at capturing the visible spectrum of sunlight. Energy cartels want this ignored. They want you to look at oxidized metal and see waste instead of the same photonic excitation potential as $20,000 rooftop arrays. The process is simple. When sunlight hits a cuprous oxide layer, photons pass through the microscopic crystal barrier. Electrons in the copper lattice become highly excited, jump across the barrier, and flow into the conductive base metal. It is a solid-state reaction with zero moving parts, infinitely repeatable. Unlike delicate silicon wafers that crack, degrade from heat, and are designed to fail, a cuprous oxide cell is rugged, almost indestructible, and costs pennies to produce. Now we examine the numbers. We calculate the lifetime cost-to-yield ratio of corporate solar versus a DIY mineral model. The math is clear. Consider a standard 10-kilowatt residential solar installation today. The panels, heavy mounting hardware, microinverters, and grid-tied battery wall average $24,500. Add predatory financing over 25 years, utility interconnection fees, and 1% annual efficiency loss from amorphous silicon dioxide, and the true lifetime cost reaches nearly $42,000. You are paying $42,000 to temporarily rent sunlight. For the DIY cuprous oxide solution, the formula is simple. E equals P max divided by C total. This is total continuous power output over total capital cost. Heavy gauge copper flashing can be bought for around $4 per square foot at a hardware store or scrapyard. By heating this copper with a propane torch or electric stovetop, rapid oxidation forms a thick black layer. Cooling it allows the layer to flake off, revealing red crystalline cuprous oxide beneath. You have created a functioning photovoltaic semiconductor for $4. The copper plate is submerged in a $2 plastic basin with a conductive saline solution, paired with a secondary untreated lead or zinc plate. A single high-output cell costs about $6.40. While each cell produces less voltage than commercial panels, scaling makes the cartel model collapse. Hundreds of these simple cells can be wired in series and parallel to match a dedicated off-grid battery bank. Total material cost is under $300. Consider a retired avionics mechanic on the outskirts of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Disgusted by utility rate hikes, he refused commercial solar. Using vintage radio schematics and thermal methods, he bypassed the silicon cartel. 90 square feet of salvaged roofing copper cost under $80. Over 3 weekends, he thermally treated plates, creating a shallow cuprous oxide array on his workshop roof. Connected to a salvaged forklift battery bank, local inspectors laughed. They said it would not light a bulb, but mathematics prevailed. Under the Albuquerque sun, the array produced a steady 14 amps at 24 volts. The efficiency per dollar was profound. Materials cost less than $150, and the return on investment occurred in 42 days. For 10 years, he generated off-grid electricity for heavy tools, invisible to the grid. Energy companies fear this. They lobby governments to ban off-grid setups under zoning and safety pretexts. It is not about safety, it is monopoly preservation. A $4 oxidized metal plate and saltwater solution can democratize power. Large cuprous oxide arrays require precision, but no corporate oversight. Copper plates must be cleaned carefully. Skin oils destroy the microcrystalline structure and electron flow. Plates are aligned in shallow, watertight trays. Electrolyte solutions, a bridge for electrons, must maintain a specific gravity. Simple saltwater works, but advanced engineers use weak sulfuric acid like car battery fluid to boost ionic transfer. The system is resilient and raw. If a commercial silicon panel takes a direct hit from a hailstone, microfractures destroy the internal circuitry, instantly turning a $500 asset into toxic waste. If a cuprous oxide liquid cell is struck, simply bend the copper plate back, top off the salt water, and the electrons keep flowing. This system is built for survival, not corporate profits. It is a ghost haunting utility boardrooms. For 60 years, they built an empire on the false notion that energy is expensive, complicated, and requires their permission. They trapped billions in endless labor just to pay for lights and food. The blueprint for freedom has been in plain sight, hidden in dusty military logs and proven by isolated mechanics in deserts. Reliance on amorphous silicon dioxide is a choice, not a scientific mandate. It is manufactured dependence. By using natural mineral semiconductors, the cartel's power is stripped. We reclaim the geometry of the sun, bypass smart meters, cut grid ties, and build localized infrastructure from discarded materials. This revolution will not be bank financed or sold in corporate packaging. It will rise in garages, backyards, and unmonitored spaces using salt, water, and scorched copper. This is the extinction event they fear. When the $60 billion industry faces this, they will focus on spatial efficiency. They claim silicon panels operate at 20% efficiency, while raw cuprous oxide cells operate below 2%. This manipulation obscures economic efficiency, which dictates watts per dollar. For backyard workshops and off-grid homesteads, economic efficiency is the true measure. A $4 mineral solution obliterates a $20,000 silicon array mathematically. A cuprous oxide cell requires more area, but sunlight and dirt are free. Using shallow troughs or wooden frames lined with plastic, spatial deficits are neutralized. Scaling is simple, relying on basic electrical laws. A single oxidized copper plate and saline produces between 0.3 and 0.5 volts. Connect 30 plates in series using standard copper wire, and 15 volts direct current is generated, enough to charge a 12-volt deep cycle battery bank. Duplicate these strings in parallel to increase amperage and total power. This decentralized grid is scalable, modular, and invisible to monopolies. If a cell degrades, lift it, brush, reoxidize with a torch, and return it to the bath. The crystalline lattice resets, and electron flow resumes. This cellular restoration uses only heat and friction. Energy cartels built a global empire as the toll booth between humanity and the sun. Centralized infrastructure exists not for efficiency, but for billing. The 1943 United States Army Signal Corps manuals were suppressed. Natural geology was ignored. Dependency on silicon dioxide was enforced because a $4 rock cannot be metered. You now hold the mathematical and chemical framework to bypass their toll. Transitioning from consumer to producer requires no massive loan or degree, only the willingness to see past sleek marketing and rediscover suppressed science. Materials are already available at hardware stores. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.